Okay, I'm back. I'm so sorry. I cut you off. It's all my bad. Is a funny thing, right? Well, I'm trying to turn the camera and I realize that I have the camera upside down for what I'm trying to do. You can't believe what I did. I actually somehow hit the emergency call button on my phone. This is the second time I've done it. Fortunately, I was able to disable it before 911 emergency was here. Not really sure how I did it. So, welcome back. Thanks for being back. Sorry that I'm a spaz. It's one of those days here at the Bedell household. Okay, I have white stamping emboss powder. You guys ever do this cracky, crazy stuff? Thanks for coming back, Jennifer. All right, I am gonna take a piece of. I'm just going to cut a small piece. This is Orchid Oasis. Let's see. And I'm just going to do a 3x3 block here. We are going to heat emboss this. Maybe I'll do 3x4. Maybe we'll put it back. Karen, thank you for coming back. Oh my goodness. The antics of Kathy Bedell. Okay. Have you heat embossed? I'm sure you have. This is the little tray that you can get from Stampin' Up. These tweezers are awesome, by the way. This is your embossing buddy. You just rub it on your cardstock. It takes the static electricity off. Because, oh, this is your favorite color? Yeah, it is a great color, isn't it? So here's what I like to say. I like to say, stamp one color darker than your cardstock. If you had, Sheila, thanks for coming back. If you had Night of Navy cardstock and you did Night of Navy ink, Night of Navy ink is so dark it probably would work great. But I'm not going to do Orchid Oasis on top of the Orchid Oasis. I'm going to go with Starry Sky. And this bloom is out of probably my all-time favorite set. Happiness Abounds. I love the script. I love the greetings, and I love the images. I especially am fond of this. I have a lot of big rose gardens in my yard. My whole yard has big rose gardens. Love them. I don't grow the fancy long ones. I'm pretty basic. Can't think of the name of them, but I keep it simple. So I'm going to just stamp a few images randomly. Let's see. I might stamp off. Oh, this isn't what I wanted to do at all. I'm going to heat emboss. Hold that thought. I need to clean my... Wow, Kathy really needs to go back to bed today. Kathy really is not on her game. Okay. I'm using Versamark. We'll talk about this other ink pad after. Angela, thanks for being here. Okay. I have Versamark. And I am going to randomly stamp flowers on this 3x4 piece of cardstock, and then I am relatively quickly, because you want to do it while the Versamark is nice and wet. Hopefully I stamped good images, because I stamped really quickly. Now I'm using a lot. It's okay, because we're in the tray and we can shake it back in after. You know the mistake I made? Anybody know what I didn't do? I didn't use the embossing buddy. The embossing buddy keeps... I call this flicking. I find that's the best way to get the excess off. Use this little brush, take off anything extra, because when you heat emboss, anything that's left will harden and turn white. Okay, I'm going to put the cover on this, and I'm going to set this aside, because I'm going to show you a few different ways to whitewash Technique, and I'm only doing this one once. I'm sorry, you're going to have to listen to my heat embosser. This is the older one. It's much hotter than the newer one. So I kind of keep it in one place, and then once I see it start to turn, I move it around. Hopefully you can see that popping. Can you see that color popping? You see the difference there? So now when you heat emboss, you want to get the powder on the Versamark that you stamp quickly. However, you could take this and set this aside and leave it overnight once the powder's on it, and then heat set it whenever you want. The catch is, you just can't touch the white powder because you can smudge it off. Hopefully you can get a good view of the powder actually changing and turning really white. I'm sure most of you guys have heat embossed, but every now and then I stumble across someone who hasn't. And so it's always a good refresher. So I don't think I stamped very well right there on that petal. Maybe that's where our greeting will go. Gosh, this whole flower doesn't look like it took very well. So you do have to be careful with white embossing powder, because you can, if you're not careful, burn it and turn it brown. Okay, we're going to leave that for a minute to cool off. So this is a stamped image. Let me clean my ink pad. That I then whitewashed. We're going to start with this while this is cooling a little bit, and I'll show you how I did this. So this is a very open lined image. I cleaned my stamp back to one color, one shade darker than your paper, cardstock. I'm going to stamp this one over here because I don't know what I'm going to do with it. We'll put it on some kind of a card. I just don't know exactly what, so I'm keeping it separate. I'm going to sit down, so if you're commenting, hey Marsha, Deborah, how are you? I know, Deb, I used the embossing buddy the first time, but then I made a big mistake and I forgot to use it the second time. You can go back and watch that later. All right, I'm sitting down, so if I don't see you comment, I'll go back later and answer them. So for this type of whitewashing, you want an aqua painter. You could technically use why can't I think of the name of this? Blender pen. I don't think it works quite as well. It takes almost too much white. So I have a fine, they used to be called aqua painters, now they're water painters. And you want to make sure that there's plenty of water on that tip by squeezing it. Hopefully this is in view. Is this in view? Okay, so you want to squeeze so that there's plenty of water in that tip. And then you just pick up a little bit and it will dry darker. I mean, it will dry lighter than it appears. And you're just going to go in. Now, what I do is I try not to get it on the lines initially. And I try to think of what in the flower is going to be the lightest petals. The center is always a little darker because it doesn't get as much light. So start on your outside petals first. And I just gently stroke. Now here I put a lot of ink. I'm actually going to pick some up and bring it over here. Almost like it's a palette. And like I said, it will dry. Hopefully you can see this one while I'm working. It will dry significantly lighter. I'm sorry, I have a frog in my throat. And I'm kind of slow and methodical about this. You probably don't need to be this slow and methodical. But like I said, the parts that I think are exposed to light, I do first. Hopefully this is on camera. Yeah. I do first because they will dry a little darker than once you've used up most of the ink. So I am going to work this brush for a very long time before I pick up more ink. And I am going to continue on the parts that I want the lightest color on and work inward where I want it to be a little darker. Now here I have a lot of color. This was the first place I touched once I re-inked. So I'm going to come in again, and I'm just kind of following the folds of the flower. And I'm going to come back out here and go over this so that it's a little darker. Like this. And again, I'm picking up here because that is just a little bit too bright, I think. It will dry darker or lighter. I keep saying darker. Whoop, I went over my line. There we go. And just keep working around your flower with as much or as little ink as you want. There's really no right or wrong. About the only thing you don't want to do is come in and just like kindergarten color over it, because if you cover up the lines too much, you don't mind getting a little ink on the lines, but if you, oh, I didn't even tell you what I was using. So this is my Whisper White stamping pad, and you can squeeze it, quote unquote, burp the pad and pull off the cover. I find it easier just to take a block and put a little bit of ink refill on it. That's what I find easier. And then I also add some water via my brush so that I can thin it out a little so it's not quite so pasty going on. So you just kind of repeat this process. And like I said, it's okay to go over the lines. You just don't want to saturate the stamped lines, because if you saturate them too much, you won't be able to distinguish what's what. Now, this center here is very closed. There are very finite lines. I'm just going to kind of squiggle in there. Those lines will pop back out. And you can see that's getting lighter already. I'm going to come back over here to this one that I did an hour ago, a half hour ago. And I'm going to just add a little bit of drama to it. A little bit of drama, mama. By just highlighting certain areas. Like this. And I kind of like to go out on the petals, start at the center and whisk up or whisk out, depending on which way the petal goes. Like this. Just add a little bit more definition and highlighting to it. Like that. All right, we're going to let those dry for a minute. Now we're going to come back in over here. Let's see here. Can you use the blender pen? Let's use the blender pen. Oh, you thought we were going to bleach. That is a technique too. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that Monday. Hello, Texas. Okay, so I'm going to show you the blender pen, but I'm going to show it to you on the scrap over here. When you use the blender pen, first of all, you're not going to want to use this. This has like what's that oily kind of, not silicone. Can't think of the name of it. It's often used in, they mix it with water for like those lava lamps. It's kind of like a heavier oily kind of product. It'll come to me. But so you're not going to want to use this or this particular blender pen again if you're doing this whitewash technique, because this craft ink, which is what the white ink is very thick and pasty. And so I'm going to show you, well, let's ink another one so I can show you. It is definitely, the blender pen makes it much thicker, not as easy to apply softly. Let me show you. I'll take it over here. So it's going to be a little more solid. You're going to use way more of the ink because you're not mixing it with water. but it also may not take multiple applications. So here we have the blender pen I'm working with, whereas the others were the water painters. I feel, now I love the blender pen. If you've ever seen me with inks or colored pencils, I love the blender pen. I think you can get such great definition, such great blending, a great watercolor effect. For this particular method, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying that I don't think you have the ability to control how much ink you're putting on. Because the aqua painter, you can kind of water down this white ink, whereas the blender pen is going to protect the integrity of the ink more. Get a little bit where I didn't want it. I don't know if it's going to come up with the blender pen the way it did with the aqua painter. So you can see the application difference. We'll see what the final project looks like once they dry good. Because once they dry, they really do take on a whole new look. I'll be interested to hear everybody's favorite colors. I know I posted a graphic and I haven't had time to go back and look at it, but I'm very excited about Pretty Peacock coming back. That was a very popular color. I'm very thankful that Freesia stayed. Very upset about Bermuda Bay, Highland Heather. Highland Heather I used a lot. I'm very sad about that. Okay, so there's one pass with the blender pen. We'll come back in and darken up some of the sections that I think might benefit from a little shading. Now you may look at this and actually like this better, and more power to you. You just have to be, unlike here, I didn't need to worry so much specifically about like this line here. You can see how defined that is. You have to be very careful with the blender pen that you don't cover the line too much or you'll lose it. And you have to reapply more because it's thicker. Like that. Okay, we're going to leave that for now. I'm actually going to leave this open because we are going to come back to this. Now let's go to... I'm the queen of labor. You know, it's really funny that you say that. Typically, I'm doing this because someone asked about it. I am typically the quicker the better. I am all about pretty and cute, but not overly labor intensive. So there we go. All right, let's see. I'm just going through the comments here. Glycerin, yes, thank you, Karen. Glycerin, that's exactly the word I'm looking for. That is what's in these blender pens. Okay, would you please demo the stained glass technique using a blender pen in a future live? I certainly will. I'm going to make myself a note of that. Stained glass with blender pen. Okay. You got it. I love to see it. Love to hear it. Yeah, special solution. They probably don't want you going out and buying glycerin. All right. So I'm not loving the way this flower came out, so I may cut this down somehow. I don't know how yet, but we'll see. All right. Oh, bleaching technique. Yes, that is a favorite technique. A little scary. Bleach is scary. Maybe 10-minute Tuesday needs to be Technique Tuesday. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Back to the water pen. I'm going to sit down again. So if you're commenting, I'll come back after. All right. Again, I am going to mix plenty of water here with this white ink. You can see why I feel like the ink refill. When you buy this pad, it comes uninked, and it comes with one of these, and you have to add the ink to it because craft ink tends to dry pretty quickly. So don't be surprised. So now I'm going to come in, and I am going to paint over this. Now we can do a little, we can do a lot. I'm going to do it two different ways. One, I'm going to kind of go over the whole image, and then pull off the embossed with a little, I don't know if I'll use a blending pen or just a little cloth. So this is pretty because the purple shows through. You know what, this is really nice? This is nice. It's gone now, but you could do it, I don't know, maybe on red or cherry cobbler. I like this on the Merlot at Christmas with Christmas images. So if you're a Merlot fan and you still have some, but if not, cherry cobbler would work. Now I'm going to come over here with just my little scrap cloth, and I'm just going to blot so that I pull the extra up off the actual embossing lines so you don't lose them. Like that. Now we'll do another one where I'm really careful not to go on the lines so you can see if there is a difference. I'm going to paint in the lines. There was the best card using this image was a Celebration distinctive stamp set. I think it was called Calming Camellia, I think it was. No, Camellia it was. And the distinctive stamps, which I'm going to show you after this, are great for this technique. And not even embossing, just whitewashing in general. So I'm using a lot more ink than I used on this flower. Picking up a lot more. I'm not being conservative, I'm being very generous. And I have to tell you, I still think I would come in with the cloth and maybe dab it. But we'll wait till it dries till we make that decision. Because even if it dries on the embossing powder, it's going to come off of the embossing powder. Embossing powder, when it's heated, is like magic. So you know what this is nice for? Actually, we'll do it in the next one. You can really choose which ones you want to whitewash and which ones you don't to get a very dramatic effect on this flower. Okay, so there I've gone more intentional. This one I'm going to be more intentional, but I am going to not highlight certain parts to make them stand out even more than just the white embossing. And I'll show you what I mean. I mean, you can really get creative with this. There's a lot you can do with this technique. If you can see here, I'm not doing that purple. I'm not doing this purple down here. I am going to do this, but I'm not going to do the ridge, like what is the petal folding back. I'm going to leave that. Hope you all grabbed a coffee or a water or something before you sat down today. I meant to tell you to, because I knew this was going to be a little longer than I normally do. That's okay. Sometimes you need to experiment to see what you like. So I'm coming in, but I'm going to leave that big fold like that. I actually don't think I like this. I actually think you need to do it all. And I only say that because it kind of looks half done. But let me get it all done, and then we'll see if we like it. Maybe once I have it all done, we'll like it better. I don't know. How's it looking on camera? In person, I don't like it that much. When you... See if I can get this to focus. See how I left some of the purple left open compared to like these? So this is the one that I kind of put color all over and dab some off. This is the one that I was a little more intentional about where I put it. It's very uneven looking, so I would need to go back in and highlight things. Whoops. And this is the one where I intentionally left some of the purple untouched. I am going to come in and blot so that maybe the white embossing shows a little better. And we'll see what that looks like. So it's a little more even toned, not quite so... That's kind of better now that I blotted it and the white embossing shows better. Color it all in! Color it all in! Are you planning on using a punch to cut out those? Or... Well, you know what? I don't know what I'm planning on doing. No plan. Honestly, that's how I stop most of my my videos. All right, so I'm just going to color this one real quick so we can dry, so we can decide what to do with this piece after. And we're going to go on to soft succulent. I'm adding a little more water to this. And we're going to go over to soft succulent and a different stamp. So this is a very open lined stamp. Now you're not going to want to like blazingly just go at this the way I am right now, unless you have heat embossed. Because if this were just regular stamped, like this one here, it would be a big muddy mess. But because you heat emboss, you can basically clean up the embossed lines so that they show through and it looks a little neater like that. I'm trying to get to focus. There we go. Okay. All right, I'm going to put this one aside because we're getting long in the tooth here. Let's pull over soft succulent, and this is Desert Details. Hey, Sherry, how are you? You like the ones with the darker ink outline better. Yeah, I think maybe I do too. Like this you mean, Pat? Or do you mean the embossed ones? You mean this one, don't you? The stamped ones as opposed to the embossed. All right, so this is a distinctive stamp. And actually, maybe I'll use this one. I started this one. I didn't start it, actually. I finished it. So maybe we'll do the bottom one, the smaller one, just to show you what's going on here. So again, I am using a darker shade than my cardstock. That's not a hard and fast rule. Well, you know what? Let's try the same color just for the heck of it. See what you think. So, this is soft succulent. I used Evening Evergreen. Here I have soft succulent with soft succulent ink. See how much lighter it is? It's almost really hard to whitewash the image. I'm going to clean this and do a darker one right beside it, and then you can compare. Like that. Okay, I'm going to sit down again. I just have sinus infection. Oh, no. Yeah, I suffer from sinuses too. Well, thank you, Karen. All right, so here we go with this flower. So again, this is a distinctive stamp, so it has natural shading to it. And so these brought as opposed to the blender pen, this aqua painter, water painter, can pick up a lot of ink. It goes a long way. So I start with the white first, the parts of the stamp that are, I think the distinctive stamps come out the best, personally. I start with the parts of the image that are the lightest. What I see is the lightest, like this. Because, like I said, this ink goes a long way on an aqua painter because of all the water. Now, I'm not going to lie. This one's very hard for me to see. Of course, it could be that I need to have my cataracts done, but aside from that, I just don't think we're going to have the same pop with this. Then as my color gets lighter, I go in and go over the darker. As it gets a little less ink on there. Like this. And I'm actually going to cover all the dark. Okay, I am going to use my tool just to dry it. Let's go back to this one. I started this one. I didn't finish it. I'm going to come in and just finish it up here, putting the darkest of the white on the lighter areas of the stamp. This is very pretty on crumb cake cardstock. It's very pretty. If you did a crumb cake with soft suede, which is going out, or early espresso ink, and then whitewashed, you get that very, what do they call it, sepia look to it. Add a little more water to this, get this a little more liquid. It's kind of drying out. This ink dries pretty fast. There we go. Oh, now we have some very, very deliberate whitewashing here. We're going to take a dryer to it so you can see what it looks like. So this was a very dark petal, and you'll see what it looks like once it's fully dry. So I started this flower being very particular and putting a lot of white on the lighter areas. Now I'm kind of just covering the entire flower so that when it dries you can see the variegated differences in the evening evergreen ink under it. Okay, I'm going to take that dryer again. All right, so there we have a distinctive stamp with the water pen. This is the distinctive stamp with the darker ink, the distinctive stamp with the same color ink. Which do you like better? Curious to know. Then, sorry, I was trying to read comments. Then this, we heat embossed with white embossing powder. And we tried various ways of doing this with the blender pen and the water painter. And this I did before I even came. Oh, maybe I did it while I was on air too. But this is a darker shade of ink on the lighter shade of cardstock. So it was Starry Sky and Orchid Oasis. And this one I primarily used the blender pen. And this one I used the aqua painter. So you can see the aqua painter helps it to be a little more uniform in color when you do it, and the lines really show up much better. Pat, I started to read that and I got really confused. That's why I had a long pause and I'm like, I'll go back and read it later. All right, so I've taken up a lot of your time today. I am grateful for you being here. I am going to turn these into cards, and I will label what is what, and I will show them tomorrow when I go live for Fun Fold Friday. I was thinking of something for tomorrow. I can't remember what it was, but I do have a fun idea for tomorrow for Fun Fold Friday. So I'm going to plan 1 o'clock. Of course, I planned 1 o'clock today and then wound up meeting a friend for coffee. So sorry about that. And so I'll see you at 1 o'clock. I will have samples of cards made with this that we did today. And I hope you all have a fabulous night. What time is it? Oh my gosh, 50 minutes. I never go this long. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging with me. See you tomorrow.